Hi everyone. In this video, you'll learn all the key takeaways from the book Thinking Fast and Slow. This book is definitely worth giving a read if you're prone to making rash decisions that you later regret, or if you're often feeling a little indecisive and you spend a lot of time delaying important decisions. The lesson in this book will definitely help you make better decisions, and that will make life a lot easier. Thinking Fast and Slow teaches us how our brain works. The writer of this book, Daniel Kahneman, is a pioneer in the fields of psychology applied to economics. With his ideas of the influence of the human psyche in decision making, he went against the long dominant theory of rational choice. When I read the book, I came across four main takeaways. I'll share those with you one by one. Let's dive into it. Takeaway number one: our brain uses different systems for different purposes. Our brain operates based on two systems, just like a computer. One is used for thinking fast, and the other for thinking slow. System 1 is intuitive and automatic, and we use it when we need to think quickly, such as when driving a car or recalling our age in a conversation. System 2, on the other hand, is responsible for problem solving and concentration. We employ it when we need to think slowly, such as when calculating a math problem or completing our tax returns. System 2 is best activated when we have the opportunity and ability to focus and concentrate, because slow thinking requires conscious effort. However, when we lack that ability, for example, when we're tired or stressed, System 1 takes over intuitively, often clouding our judgment. I myself am a prime example of impulsiveness and rash decision making. Reading this book, I realized that was because I was always busy and didn't take many breaks throughout the day. So during busy working days, I was often feeling distracted and drained, and I therefore relied on System 1 to make decisions rather than System 2. Taking this lesson into account, I started prioritizing taking more small breaks during the day, which actually massively improved my work results due to my ability to make better decisions. Takeaway number 2: our brain uses mental shortcuts. When making decisions, we automatically use mental shortcuts. These mental shortcuts are called heuristics and are part of our System 1 thinking. Us humans are wired to always look for the most efficient method to tackle a problem. Heuristics reduce the cognitive load of making a decision and therefore save you some thinking energy. But how does that process work? Well, our brain uses the knowledge from prior experiences in somewhat similar new situations. Therefore, we don't have to invent the wheel all over again. We just go off on our prior knowledge. Even though heuristics might be helpful, it's important to know that they can also be the root of bias. That brings us to lesson 3. We create biases in our own heads. Our System 1 is gullible and biased, whereas our System 2 is skeptical, and we actually use both systems to shape our beliefs and values. When making a decision, we often look for evidence to back up a desired outcome rather than looking for counterexamples and truly exploring all options. You may have heard of the term confirmation bias. This arises when you have a strong view and search for evidence to back it up. This strong conviction can lead you to overlook or dismiss evidence that contradicts your belief. There are many instances known where confirmation bias occurred in criminal justice investigations. As a result, a suspect is wrongfully convicted because the investigators were convinced of their guilt and only gathered evidence to support that. This is a great example as to why you should be wary of bias caused by System 1 thinking. In today's day and age, confirmation bias is also very common in social media. Social media platforms want to keep their users entertained for as long as possible. So they use algorithms to display information and posts that users are likely to agree with rather than showing them opposing viewpoints. If you have watched The Social Dilemma, you will know that this can have dangerous outcomes. Kahneman introduces a number of common biases and heuristics that might lead to poor decision making. First of all, anchoring. When making decisions, people often rely on the first available information they encounter. This is called anchoring bias. Here's a simple example. When a picture of a house is shown to a group of people, and they are asked if the house contains more or less than 10,000 bricks, their estimation will generally be higher than a similar group that is asked if the house contains more or less than 5,000 bricks. Even if both groups later on get some additional information regarding building a house from bricks, this first available piece of information will greatly affect the answers. Then there is the bias called priming. Priming happens when a certain stimulus elicits a faster or stronger response in the brain, because that stimulus or a stimulus like it has been observed before. This accelerated response in the brain leads us to act on that stimulus. Priming is often used in advertising. Nike, for example, centralizes feelings of accomplishment and activity in their branding. They promote professional athletes and use slogans like, "Just do it," to highlight achievement and dedication. This way, consumers are likely to think about Nike products when starting a new sport. Here's another example you probably never thought about. If a restaurant has too much Italian wine on hand, they play Italian music in the restaurant to encourage people to buy it. Moving on to the next bias, availability. The availability bias means that we tend to overestimate the value or representability of things that come easily to mind. The availability bias affects those guided by System 1 more than others. The media can play a big role in the formation of availability bias. For example, if you were to catch a flight the next day and you just watched a massive plane crash on the news, this could cause you to have an irrational fear of your plane crashing as well. The last type of bias we'll talk about is the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy describes our tendency to follow through on an endeavor if we have already invested time, effort, or money into it, whether or not the current costs outweigh the benefits. We all know that friend who stayed in a relationship too long, even though he or she wasn't being treated right by their partner. Considering the sunk cost fallacy, this is not so strange. They probably put a lot of effort into that relationship and don't want to come to terms with the fact that that effort might have been for nothing. However, this fear is usually more damaging than letting go. You should always avoid holding on to something that doesn't serve you anymore. Finally, we come to takeaway number 4, loss aversion. Many of our choices in life are based on an expectation of possible gain or loss. For example, you want to invest your money in a very promising startup. This investment has the potential to double or even triple your money's worth, but there's always a risk. If the startup doesn't perform as expected, you could lose all your money. Most people are more afraid of losing something than they are motivated to gain something. They fear losing money so much that they won't take the necessary risks to gain more money. Psychology says that the pain of losing is about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining. This theory is a very good explanation for the sunk cost fallacy we talked about before. Loss aversion can drive people to take unnecessary, desperate risks to avoid further loss. However, that usually only makes things worse. Risk-taking of this kind often turns manageable failures into disasters. This also explains why the losing side in wars often fights long past the point that victory is already guaranteed for the opposing side. Defeat is too challenging to accept. For the time being, this summary on thinking fast and slow has come to an end. Let me know if you have read this book and share your thoughts on it in the comment section below. If you like this video, give a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to this channel for more book summaries. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.